to the Port of Morrow Commission meeting for March 11th, 2026. We'll call this meeting to order and we'll do introductions. All are present. So we'll go around the room. Lisa, do you want to start, please?
Lisa Middlestorf, Port of Morrow.
Mark Patton, Port of Morrow.
Eileen Hendricks, Port of Morrow.
Nick Growey, Aqua Engineering.
Erica Morgan, Port of Morrow.
Randy Warburton, Port of Morrow.
Chad Snyder, Port of Morrow.
Jeff Devon, Port of Morrow.
Peter Deland, Johnson Controls. Jacob Kane, Port of Morrow.
Christine Reagan, Port of Morrow.
Online, we will start with Mark. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Mark Vandervoort. Mark Vandervoort, Clean Industries.
Perfect. Bernadette.
Thank you, Bernadette Brennan, WIFIA at EPA.
Thank you. Aaron. Thank you. Gotcha.
Sam Tucker, Port General Counsel.
E81632.
Laura Barquist, Industry, PGE.
Thank you. Kelly M.
Kelly Morgan, Lamb Weston.
Thank you. Griffin Beach.
Griffin Beach, Elkhorn Media.
Thank you. Ryan.
Ryan Gleason, CFM Advocates.
Doug.
Doug Scott, WIFIA EPA.
Jamie.
Jamie Stewart, Tillamook.
And I'm assuming Debbie's note taker is Debbie Reedy. I'm assuming that means she's not there. Angie.
Angie Sullivan, Landwise.
You. I'm assuming Sam Brown.
Yep, Sam Brown, DEQ, Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Thank you. Armando.
Armando Nunez, Borman Foods.
David.
David Albrecht, SDAO, Municipal Advisor to the Port of Morrow.
Kirby.
Hello, Kirby Garrett, CFM Advocates.
Lauren.
Lauren Garissi, Parametrics.
Joe.
Joe Metzel, Parametrics.
And Cody is just joining, who's also with Aqua.
So, Sean, we invited DEQ and EPA to do our update for on our wastewater project. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining today. All the commissioners had a chance to look at the agenda. Any conflict of interest declarations today? Okay. We have a consent agenda that was sent out with our packet. Has everyone had a chance to review that?
We need to go back up to public.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Got all nervous with. We have two people signed up for public comment. The first is via Zoom. Contacted us with an email and he sent a copy, Mr. Mark Vandervoort with Clean Industries. Thank you for sending that, Mark. You're up if you're ready.
Great. Thank you very much, Chairman. So to the chairs, commissioners, and members of the public, my name is Mark Vandervoort, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Clean Industries Boardman. Thank you for accepting this public comment. As you said, Mr. Chairman, I also provided a written version for inclusion in the meeting minutes. Over the last several months, we have been engaged with the Port of Morrow regarding the sale of Clean Industries Boardman's assets to DMG Infrastructure, which has paid a deposit on that sale at the beginning of October 2025, approximately 6 months ago. DMG is a publicly traded company engaged in the operation of data centers. We provided the port with detailed documentation describing DMG's intentions for the development of a data center at the Boardman site. Our goal has been to bring clarity and transparency to DMG's plans, technical approach, operational capabilities, and long-term commitment to the community. These plans are backed by public statements that DMG has made on recent earnings calls and its press releases. I do apologize if you can hear my dog barking in the background. We appreciate the port's time and attention in reviewing these materials, and we look forward to the opportunity to schedule a meeting with the port staff, which we have done. That meeting's scheduled for tomorrow. To walk through the information in detail, answer any remaining questions, and discuss the specific path forward. Our goal is to address your concerns and work collaboratively toward completing the lease assignment and change of use process, or if more appropriate, helping to establish a new agreement that reflects the objectives of both the port and DMG. In addition, we anticipate that upon close, the tax value of the property will see a 300% increase immediately prior to any investment of DMG, which is a significant value for the community. We believe DMG, a public company with a strong balance sheet and substantial data center operations, will be an important long-term partner for the Port of Morrow and an asset to the citizens of Morrow County. The project represents an opportunity for responsible development, economic contribution, and partnership. And I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Van Verd. We appreciate it. Our second public commenter is Mr. Raymond Akers. Raymond.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity here. Just wanted to go over a few things that happened to me today involving one of your projects. I was on my way down to get recertified at the Union Hall, and I got behind the wrong barrier on the Coonsey Road and got my ass chewed pretty heavy by one of your employees. Don't appreciate it. I just wanted to let you all know that there's a process for traffic control, and it's not being followed out there. So the county should have a traffic control plan that they had to sign on to. I would guess. Typically, that's ODOT's traffic control standard that they put out. But every job I've been on, there's been a TSC or TCS, traffic control supervisor, which carries a valid card and usually requires being a flagger for like 2,000 hours of work experience before you can fulfill that. There's measurements that you have to maintain leading up to these closures, and they have to be clearly marked. And the wind is not always a great excuse when you should have that traffic control supervisor on site cleaning things up anyway. It's almost another fight that got picked with me this morning from one of your employees, and I will be taking pictures of that project. And there's a lot of things going on. OSHA's already hit them pretty heavy, from my understanding. And something I didn't want to get into. I wanted to just keep a blind eye on it, but it really upset me this morning when I was attacked like that by your employee for tomorrow pickup. I don't know his name, but I could guess who it was, but that would be best. But I'm assuming that you guys have taken responsibility for some of that stuff with that guy even being there, taking control of the traffic situation. But there's certain criteria that you should require for your personnel to keep people safe. I don't want to get in harm's way, especially with that outfit. They got a bad track record. The pipe laying down the road is not, drive through there at dark and it's black pipe right on the median, right on the line. Somebody's going to get hurt. And whatever that's worth to you folks, clearly you've taken some kind of ownership of the project, having your guy out there. So that's all I got to say. But you might want to check into the traffic control gal or whoever that's certified to do that kind of stuff. So
Can I ask a question?
I suppose, yes.
Where were you at?
I was you follow the pattern, and sometimes it takes you from a road closure detour from that project to a road closure for wind wave. So I mean, there's controversies in the whole working arrangement that's going on there.
Coonsey.
But I was on Coonsey in between Peters and Tom Camp.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah.
We appreciate the comments.
Appreciate the whole community would appreciate some attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion the second to present the consent or approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Unanimous. Thank you. I'll move on to legislative updates. Ryan, I saw you were on. Would you like to start?
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. Happy to start. Thanks, everyone. Ryan Gleason with CFM. Happy to be here to provide a legislative update now that the short session has wrapped up. It's always funny. I was just thinking about this. I've been doing this about 10 years now, and every short session, there seems to be a disagreement on what the short session is for. Is it budget rebalance and policy fixes, or is it larger policy endeavors that legislators might have? This year was the latter. They had to tackle some budget deficit issues for the enterprise, for the state of Oregon, and then also transportation. But they also looked at other large policy issues, including responding to federal immigration tactics and the federal government generally. Some of those included DOJ developing a bill passing related to DOJ developing model policies and procedures for local governments related to immigration, notification of when ICE is on school property, and mask bans, to just name a few. But there was also bipartisan efforts to save a rural hospital in Coos Bay, and then passing new farm store rules and regulations after a failed rulemaking at the DLCD. So big issues that they tackled, just to name a few. Some of the things that we focused on and we're watching as the port was House Bill 4084. It was a larger economic development bill coming from Governor Kotek, but it included a few things around fast track permitting, funding for industrial site readiness, and changes to the standard enterprise zone program, which included increased extensions and expanded business eligibility. Pretty late in the session, right before a Monday morning Capitol construction hearing for this bill, a new amendment arose related to data centers, and it placed a one-year moratorium on new data center projects within the standard enterprise zone program. It does not impact anything currently in the pipeline, but that amendment also removed the ability for data centers to seek the extensions under the standard program. So thank you to Lisa, who took plenty of calls over the course of Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but that bill did move forward with those amendments with the goal of the governor's task force on data centers to inform any 2027 policy steps related to enterprise zones, other economic development tools, and data centers. Largely. House Bill 4086, this was the industrial symbiosis bill. It passed with broad bipartisan support. The Port of Morrow was actually named as an entity that will be working closely with Oregon Business Development Department on increasing industrial symbiosis throughout our region. A few other things, not economic development, House Bill 4177. This was a public meetings bill. This was something that was being negotiated by the League of Oregon Cities, Association of Oregon Counties, and Special Districts Association regarding Oregon's public meeting laws and clarifying what counts as a public meeting. Quorum, reaffirming that quorum cannot use serial communications to deliberate things outside of a public meeting, changing those training requirements for certain governing bodies would not impact the port, and updating the complaint process and extending the complaint deadline to file a grievance to 90 days. Public bodies still remain responsible for meeting notice, location, minutes, and recording requirements, so that would not change for the port. But this was something that we tracked closely given it was negotiated between the associations and various legislators and the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. Another one related to OGEC requirements is House Bill 4161. It feels small but important. It says that food and swag is not compensation. So the port shirts and if food is given at events, those should not be considered as part of compensation for local governments. Another really important issue that we were tracking throughout session was the transportation rebalance. The legislature was looking at diverting various funding streams and pots of money to operations and maintenance. As you know, the transportation package from the special session is being referred to voters. Democrats were successful in pushing that to the May election, and we should see some legal challenges and updates from that coming soon. I'll keep you apprised of the developments there, but they still had to rebalance the transportation budget. It was nearly $300 million. A large portion of that was from vacancy savings, but unfortunately, it did include moving $42 million from the Connect Oregon program. So I worked closely with the Port of Coos Bay on strategies to ensure that there was at least some money in that program so the Port of Morrow could potentially apply for a grant this cycle. Despite the reductions, the ODOT director and Daniel Porter with ODOT got up and announced to Joint Ways and Means that there should be a grant cycle this year in 2026. It will be smaller, the awards will be smaller, but we are still looking at aligning some of the federal requests that we've put in around Terminal 3 improvements forward for a request this year. Generally, the budget rebalance for the entire enterprise relied on, again, those vacancy savings positions that haven't been hired, as well as disconnecting from the federal tax code that is saving the state around $300 million. So they were able to walk out with a balanced budget. Those were just a few of the things that we were tracking. I know we're quick meeting today, but next up, I'm going to be putting together a report for the port and you commissioners around some of the other big policy issues that moved. We're going to be working on putting together a Connect Oregon grant, like I just said, and then hopefully using the next few months to prepare for the 2027 legislative session. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Does anyone have questions? I appreciate the report and I appreciate your sending out the email too. And thank you for that. Right. Kirby, I saw you were on.
Yep. Good afternoon. All right. Yes. Kirby Garrett, CFM Advocates here on the federal affairs side. So I'll keep things brief. I feel like I always say this, but there's a lot happening in Washington, D.C. right now. As you can imagine, much of the focus has shifted to foreign policy as of late. The conflict with Iran is dominating a lot of conversations on Capitol Hill. So far, Republicans are generally have voiced support for the administration's efforts, but there are definitely concerns on both sides of the aisle about how long this is going to go on for, what the impact is going to be globally and to prices here at home, fertilizer, fuel prices, et cetera. And then, of course, how costly is the war going to be, both in terms of dollars and, more importantly, American personnel. So at the same time that all of that is going on, Congress is dealing with a prolonged shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. DHS has now been shut down for several weeks, I think nearly a month, due to this partisan fight over immigration enforcement and what's the role of ICE. And Democrats want to see reform following the events that happened in Minnesota. So ultimately, there's been very little progress on that, and they're barely even talking right now. And the situation has become even more complicated as of last week, when the president essentially dismissed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Her departure has created, obviously, that kind of additional uncertainty, but I would also say it's emboldened congressional Democrats in their negotiating position and sort of how they want to move forward with those negotiations. And then lastly, just kind of on big picture stuff, I just say that Republicans are sort of dealing with some internal debates about their legislative priorities for the rest of the year. The major fight going on right now is over the Save America Act, which you may have heard about. This is a bill that would require proof of citizenship and photo ID to vote in federal elections. It's become a major priority for the president and the administration as of late, and conservative activists as well, as we're heading into the midterm elections. There is, however, I think the Republican caucus in both the House and Senate is pretty much behind this, but there's disagreements about how to move forward since they don't have the votes to get it done without bypassing the filibuster. And so there's some Republicans that want to see them take some efforts that would circumvent that. and others are worried about the precedent that was sent and what that looks like in future Congresses when they don't have the majority. And then meanwhile, Republicans on the House side are discussing the possibility of another reconciliation package. Speaker Johnson has said he wants them to move forward and that they will be moving forward with this. As you probably remember, this is the same process, reconciliation, that they used to pass H.R. 1, which was dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Conservative members, especially within the Republican Party, have been pushing for this. They were sort of promised this for their votes for H.R. 1, as a second round would address some of their concerns about increasing the debt and reducing the deficit. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be very hard to get this across the finish line. When they passed the first bill, it was in the first 100 days or shortly thereafter of President Trump taking office for the second time. We're now in a midterm election year, and the margin that the House Republicans have is even thinner than last time. So it's going to be tricky, but we will see what materializes. And then just lastly, zooming in on Port of Morrow priorities. So at the end of last month, we submitted 2 congressionally directed spending projects to Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden. Talked about those on our last call, but just as a reminder, the first is for $1.8 million in funding. This would be used to reinforce the face dock at Terminal 3. Big shout out to Walter on your team, who amassed a very, very impressive list of support and letters of support from different industry partners. So we got that submitted. And then the second request is also for $1.8 million, and that's for the city of Ione to renovate their American Legion building into an incubator space. So, we've been in touch, obviously, with the congressional delegation on this already, but we'll be talking about these projects next week as well when the Senate offices or with the Senate offices when Lisa and Mark and David Ulbricht are all back in DC. As part of that visit, we've also arranged a meeting with EPA and the WIFIA team in DC to discuss next steps for loan closing. And with that, I'll wrap things up, but of course, happy to answer any questions. Thanks as always.
Thank you, Kirby. There's never a dull moment. You're right. Do we have questions?
That's for sure.
Doesn't look like it. Thank you for the update, Kirby.
Yep.
Moving into old business, CDA update, please.
Let's see, that's the 2 big things. The next step to take is the purchase and sale agreements. And we're moving forward with those, and I'm hoping to get it, we'd like to get it done as soon as possible. I'm hoping at our next meeting that we're able to move that forward. But at any rate, that's where that's at. We're going to be working on a budget. The DDA we discovered last year doesn't have to do the public one. It can do its own budget. And I'm recommending that we do that. It would be a simple one to do, but I'm going to insist that we go through the process and have a budget. And I think that's the high. Unless you have any questions, that's what we're continuing to get closer to the big steps, the last big step.
That's great.
So
we appreciate your efforts on it, Joel. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for Joel?
The next one.
Eileen might have one.
Yes.
Lisa?
We do need to talk about the latest bill that we received from Tapani, from Emily, and it was 1.2 million. 1.2 million, we did act as a conduit for the waiting for the reimbursement from the state on the first three draws, and do we want to continue that?
I asked, Umatilla County expressed at least interest in considering it, but haven't heard from them.
Acting as fiscal agent.
Acting as fiscal agent. This
isn't really acting as a fiscal
Yeah,
agent,
right.
it's advancing the funds to CDA while they're waiting for their money back
It's
from
a-
ODOT.
short-term loan.
Oh, this is
Or
what we did
short-term-
recently then.
Yeah. That's the loan.
Yeah,
We did, right. It took a little bit longer.
yeah, Emily did forward me the email from ODOT, which said that they could not do other than a check. So like, they got it the first of the week. They sent the check out that Thursday. It was another week, so it was, the full turnaround was like 2 weeks and a day, or 2 weeks and 2 days.
This is a request from the CDA board then, or?
I think this is a request from
We're more.
Morrow. I think it's
To do
a
this again.
request from us. Emily forwarded on to her, to us.
It keeps the road project going
Mm-hmm, sure.
I thought they were working on getting
along.
financing, yeah.
So far,
Or did that?
it's
end up-
only talk. We talked about it again and talked about it, but. I think yeah. The tribes had a suggestion that didn't move forward with it.
What is the wish of the commission?
I'm in favor.
The turnaround was not as quick as we might have liked, but it did happen.
It did happen, yes.
2 weeks really isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Does it cost us anything?
longer than some.
What's that?
Does it cost us anything?
Well,
Okay, so it's the interest that we don't earn in the bank. But if our funds are at Bank of VO, that's very, very minimal.
Yeah.
And if it's, we do keep the majority of our money at the government pool, which pays substantially more. But we don't do a ton of back and forth.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Probably should have a motion,
probably should have a motion.
please.
We are tying up. Oh, I still move.
Okay, thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Lisa
I think
wants.
Lisa has some discussion, so.
Is this for this payment only, or is this?
I think
the
we should
next?
finish the project.
I do too.
I have a question then, though. There was a question about eligibility or availability of funds. UEC, the 5 million that was a grant, is that there or not?
According to the last CDA meeting, it is still available.
And Mark and I met with UEC for 3 hours Friday afternoon, and we will have another follow-up with them about that topic.
So there's still a question that we only
don't have the agreement.
They don't have the agreement.
They
with
don't have
the
the
state.
agreement.
So
Should not take very long for them to get it done.
Okay. So what are we looking for an outlay then for the, if we were to make this motion to complete the project?
Total Taphany contract is 8.466 million. And we have paid 1.5 of that already. And this next draw is 1.2.
And the grants that we have in hand are how much? 7 million?
7 million.
7.2.
I guess my request would be then that we don't exceed the 7.2
Without coming back to you.
without coming down.
Okay.
I don't know, would you?
yes,
accept
that would
that
be fine.
amendment?
I would make that motion.
Rick? Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. There was a.
That, I will say that they do thank the board Morrow a lot at the meetings, but that's all of whether they go.
They don't open their check right. Okay. One request that we might have concerning the CDA is we should have a tour out there sometime. Some of us haven't seen it for a while, and especially where we're going to take ownership of the land, and we can have a more specific discussion of thoughts and things.
Jacob and Mark and I have talked about that too. We'd like to get out and meet with IRZ and look at the road
Sounds great.
project, and
Who would we meet with? Would IRZ the best?
I would think IRZ.
Would be okay.
Okay, all right, thank you much. We'll look forward to that in the future then. Anything else on CDA?
I'd like to have.
Just to point out that I did add to your books, right behind old business,
Oh.
the final. What's it called from? The summer, thank you. List minutes.
Yeah. So why do we have this? This is for the tribes?
Yeah, well, that's the final.
That was the Umatilla County action.
Yeah.
Closure of that issue, right? Yeah, the lawsuit, basically.
I mean, last month we showed you the settlement agreement, but this was just the final, it's done.
It's done.
Good.
Yeah.
But it
All right.
looks like it's just for the tribes, or
Yeah, I didn't read it. It's right behind old business. There was one for Umatilla County and one for Morrow County, and I just printed the Morrow.
Yeah, the front one here. Maybe yours was out of order.
might be.
Got it.
No, I don't know if he has it separate. I put it in your book.
Uh-huh. That's the wildlife habitat.
Do you have any other concerns, Joel? Or-
Okay, no,
Okay.
I think it's been done, so
Yes.
that's great news.
Yeah, that is good news. All right, thanks, Randy. All right, we'll move on to WIFIA update, please. Who would like to do that?
We're going there next week.
We are. David, do you want to give an update?
Yeah, and we also have, Doug and Bernadette from WIFIA on the call as well. But yeah, let me turn on my camera here real quick. Sorry. Yeah, anyway, we're plugging along. I'm working on some information for the port right now on cash flows and some other things that I was politely reminded that my focus was the Port of Morrow. So that's what I've been doing. But yeah, the updates, I mean, we're going to meet with WIFIA next week and we're going to talk about various steps and tasks and remaining items that might need to go through with with them to closing on the transaction. But we're getting closer to making that decision to proceed with the WIFIA project. So we'll certainly have more information after our meeting next week.
Okay, thank you, David. Anything else on WIFIA? Okay. We'll look forward to hearing back. Clean Water State Revolving Fund update.
Not much to update there either. I mean, we did close on the design portion of it. So next steps will be getting the design done and then going for the other part of the loan.
So steady progress then.
Yes. Mhm.
Good, okay. All right. Morrow County Clean Water Consortium update.
Kelly?
Well, we had a meeting last night. And we discussed, well, with our new administration, he's got a new website up. And, he's gonna try to get everything transferred from the county site to that site, so you can go just look at that at one place and it'll all be there. Minutes, you'll still access the meeting portal through the county, but everything else is getting its own website. And but I guess our major discussion was about going out for bid for engineering work for the project from the city out to the West Glen area. And we kind of put things on hold on that, mostly waiting for the city to give us whatever the rate's going to be, and to possibly look at using their engineer in some kind of an IGA agreement instead of going out for a bid. And then just waiting for the city to make a determination on whether or not they're actually willing to do the project. So we kind of put things on hold on the engineering part of it until we get a little more information from those other partners. So anything else, Lisa?
Is it on their agenda?
That's what I asked. I don't know. They've had
a meeting this morning.
Oh, did they?
We'll see how that goes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were meeting with the.
Haven't had a follow-up yet from that one, but did talk to Jacob a little bit about engineering and what the percentages should be. And of course, he doesn't want the port to volunteer to do that work, but they're very capable of doing that work. We just have a lot on our plate right now, so we probably won't do that. We're hoping that we can go through the IGA. I think that's the safest thing to do for the Clean Water Consortium. We may be able to do construction oversight on that project, which will save the Clean Water Consortium some money.
I think they're still kind of up in the air on what that's gonna look like. The county came back with about 3 different options, having a special district, having a service district. What was the third? There's
The city just provides
just the
water
city providing water
and billing the customers.
yeah, and I know that the Kevin Nance at the accounting office, they really don't want to own a utility at the county. So that option is probably the last option that anybody really wants to do, but if it comes down to that, I think they're willing if they had to do it, but not really thrilled about owning a utility at the county.
And I think at the same time, the conversation for the city is to actually remove that property from the urban growth boundary. So
Yeah, we didn't get a real clear answer on that one.
they can still provide services. They just wouldn't have any of the other requirements there for bringing that property into city codes.
Right.
Which were probably the residents that don't want that.
Right.
Any other questions?
I guess, again, want to reaffirm that, any of those 3 that you just explained are gonna require pipe in the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. Plain and simple. We've got the money, we need to start getting it done. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face and never get anything done. So my frustration is I would love to see some dirt moving and some pipe in the ground. If they want to hook up, great. If they don't, that's fine. It's on them. But we've got to get the project moving. And if not, we need to move it where the money will be used in a good fashion. So.
I agree with Rick on that.
And that did remind me, 581,000 that's sitting at OHA is the number that the Clean Water Consortium will submit a bill for engineering, planning, and construction. That's the 3 we approved, right?
Yeah, so we'll be able to take that money and keep it in-house instead of giving it back to the Oregon Health Authority, which we don't have any control of how it's spent. This way we have more control.
And we did look at our agreement with OHA, and the next reporting cycle is the report's due the end of March, so we'll get that hopefully first part of April.
But yes, we are working on the city to get them moving forward. And I apparently they've had other meetings. I've only listened to 1 or 2 workshops on the subject, but before we spent money for engineering, we thought maybe we should make sure that the city is ready and willing.
But again, they're not the only option, right?
They're the only option for the water, yes.
What about a water district? They could dump.
Well, that would be drilling a well and, yeah, and I don't think those were different options. That the only option that we have right now on the table is connecting to a city water source.
It's who manages the project, Rick. It's whether the city takes the customers into their system and bills them, or the water goes to the county and the county then is the utility.
Yeah. I understand that part, but it's still gonna require pipe in the ground.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it seems to me some decisions need to be made and some things cleared up and get going on the project if we can do it. But
We talked a lot yesterday about what our goals are for the group, and, just a reminder that it is to provide clean water.
Yeah.
Yeah, as affordable as we can. Any other discussion or questions? Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lisa. SIP IGA with the county. At our meeting last Friday, we had thorough discussions for a couple of hours. Kind of came up with the idea that we would form a work group with a minority of representatives from each commission. So 2 from the port and staff, 1 from the county and staff. So looking for people that would be interested in serving on that.
Well, I would recommend, John and Jerry, with Lisa's staff as representatives on that, if they're available to do so.
Yes, I'm available to do that.
Yeah, I'd be.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
So
like to see it get done right, so. Okay, I would second that motion, I guess.
Okay. Sure. All right, so thank you. That's my next question.
Good.
All right, we have a motion on the floor then to appoint Jerry and myself to interim work group with the county, come up with a SIP agreement to bring back a SIP IGA. And Lisa as, I'm sorry, and Lisa as the staff, I'm sorry, I apologize. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, everyone. Secondary treatment update, Aqua. We have Nick with us, growing, is that it?
Ground.
Ground.
That's okay, it's a weird one.
Thank you for being here today.
Give me just a moment to get the screen going.
No, you're not.
Okay.
If my eyes are blocking. My seat, but no. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Much better.
There we go. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Nick Growy with Aqua Engineering, the port's engineering consultant tasked with developing the secondary treatment facility. Here to provide an update on the project status. I'll briefly recap the project, what it is, where we are in the schedule, discuss a little bit about the technology itself that we've selected, and kind of summarize what progress has been made since our last meeting, and provide a cost estimate update, of course, and discuss what the next steps are. So just a quick overview of what I'll be discussing today. So again, a short recap of the project, where it fits within the port's overall wastewater system, walk through the project schedule, current status. After that, I'll briefly discuss the broader regional priorities that the project is intended to address and balance. Then we'll look into how biological treatment works, the selected treatment system, and how operators can adjust the treatment performance over time. Finally, I'll provide a cost estimate update and review the next project milestones, and of course, take questions. So purpose of the project, or project overview. I think you all know that the purpose of the project is to add a secondary treatment step to the port's existing wastewater system. This looks like this is a biological treatment process that we're adding to the port system between the existing anaerobic digesters and the newly constructed winter storage ponds. Today, industrial wastewater generated by industry at the port is treated primarily through the anaerobic digester system. It is then stored and reused in local agricultural fields. This project adds a biological nutrient removal step that ultimately reduces nitrogen loading before the wastewater is stored and applied to farmland. The goal of the project is to improve long-term regulatory compliance that reduces the overall nitrogen loading while also balancing the agricultural value that is inherent to the wastewater and the nutrients contained within it. The facility is being designed to treat approximately 9.5 million gallons per day on average, with a peak monthly flow is kind of how we classify these types of facilities and how they're rated. That peak monthly flow approaching 13 million gallons per day. Just to provide a little bit of perspective, the port's current average flow rate is somewhere around 6.5 million gallons per day. So room to grow. Project schedule. Concept design was completed and presented to this commission in May of 2025. during that step, it was really a feasibility evaluation of, can we do this from a very high level? At that time, it was determined that yes, this is an appropriate means to control nitrogen for the port. So that led us into our preliminary design step. During preliminary design, we submitted a 30% design package to DEQ and issued requests for proposals to different technology companies to provide the actual treatment technology to the port to get the work done. That RFP process took place between roughly October and December, and right before the end of the year, we did make formal pre-selections of two major big ticket items associated with this particular facility. That's one of them is the SBR, or sequencing batch reactor, the other being a waste activated sludge thickening system. These are very large, expensive purchases that require a bespoke design. We need to design around a particular technology, which is why we went through this formal selection process. Just given the valuation, we wanted to make sure that we're looking at this from a competitive bidding standpoint. Although it wasn't a true bid, it was a pre-selection is what we call it. We still went through the formal bidding proposal evaluation process before we made those selections. Since then, January through today, our team has been working on detailed design where we are integrating those selected technologies into the overall project itself in preparation for approval through DEQ, as well as in preparation for bidding document development. So we're now in the final design stage. The next milestone being a 90% design deliverable to DEQ. That is in just a couple of weeks on April 1st, and we are currently on track to hit that date. Balancing regional water priorities. Wastewater treatment design is fairly straightforward for those of us who've been doing it for a long time, but the real challenge with this project, is, I know you're all very aware of, is balancing these very disparate, sometimes competing priorities. So this project really sits at the intersection of all of these priorities. The first being the port must meet evolving regulatory requirements related to nitrogen management within the basin. The second priority is the agricultural value of the wastewater and the nutrients contained within it. Every bit of nitrogen we remove from this system is nitrogen that is no longer available for our farmers. Third, the port supports a large industrial economy. Water dependent industries employ thousands and generate substantial economic activity, not only for this region of the state, but really this entire region of the country. Finally, the treatment system needs to be designed in a way that is operationally practical and financially responsible for the port to operate from a long-term standpoint. So a tough balancing act to play, but I think we are really, we're right where we need to be. I'll get in lightly to how treatment manages nitrogen. Most nitrogen entering the port's wastewater system today is in the form of ammonia. The treatment systems that we design, not only for this project, but for many municipal treatment plants, industrial treatment plants elsewhere for different applications, they use microorganisms to actually do the work. So there are bugs, if you will, that we're growing, and those bugs, they will convert different forms of nitrogen either into other forms of nitrogen or convert it into nitrogen gas, which then leaves the system. So the first step in this process, kind of represented by this first leg, is a process called nitrification, where we're converting ammonia nitrogen into nitrate nitrogen. The second step of the process, we convert that nitrate into nitrogen gas. These are different microorganisms that do these different steps for us. So it's important to understand that this is different than filtering water, for example. We are cultivating colonies of bacteria that then do the work for us. So we're essentially, the people are one step removed from the actual work that's happening. Ultimately, the result is lower nitrogen out the back door of the plant. Not only lower nitrogen, but nitrogen in a different form than when we received it. Sequencing batch reactor treatment systems. This is the technology that we have opted to progress with. SBRs work through a repeating cycle. In the process, wastewater is treated in batches. So it comes into the pond. We fill the pond. We react the batch. We allow some time for settling, and then we will decant the clean water off of the top of that batch. And this happens over and over and over again. You fill, you react, you settle, you decant. In this process, we have 4 trains. So although the feed into the plant is continuous, it's nonstop, the treatment itself is happening in discrete batches. So one process train may very well be treating, while another train is draining into the land application system. This provides very flexible variability in flows. Just the nature of the port's wastewater collection system, there's very high variability in flow rates depending on what's going on with industry. From a day-to-day standpoint and also a seasonal standpoint. Just recently, I think it was Nam Weston's had a plant shutdown and flows dramatically dropped for a period of time. And that is one major advantage of this SBR. It can handle that huge variability in flows. The bigger advantage, in my opinion, is this is a system that can be employed in earthen lagoons. I've got a couple of pictures on the board there from a very similar project. This is up in Alaska. But what you see there are earthen lagoons. They're holes that we've dug in the ground and lined those ponds with HDPE liner, very similar to the Farm 3 and Farm 4 project that we've done. And then there's a concrete pad on the bottom to facilitate cleaning. Every once in a while, we're going to have to get equipment down into the bottom of there and haul the muck out. So there is some concrete, but what you don't see and what is very commonly employed on similar treatment facilities is very large concrete structures, vertical concrete walls with thick reinforced concrete. That's the biggest cost savings of this project and the biggest advantage of the SBR system. So there's several other reasons for why we selected the technology that we did. I wanted to highlight those two as being really the primary purpose of employing SBRs for the port is ability to accommodate high flow variability and ability to employ them in earthen lagoons, which gets the job done at a much more cost-effective number. I'll touch a little bit more on operational flexibility of the treatment system. Again, the treatment process is biological. The bacteria that's doing the work for us. It's not a filter. So for that reason, we can't just turn the plant off and turn it on. Although it may very well sound appealing from a cost-saving standpoint to turn it off when you don't need it, but by the nature of the plant, you can't just destroy the colony of bugs to turn it back on when you need it. So what we can do is the operators, and Chad's in the room behind me, he's got experience doing this, is we can adjust the treatment performance by modifying different process parameters that will influence those biological colonies. So we can, increase the biological activity by adjusting things like aeration time or mixing cycle. And what that does is it will serve to reduce the nitrogen coming out of the back door. And you can do the opposite. You can decrease the biological activity and increase the nitrogen that is going out the door. So this allows gradual adjustment of the nitrogen removal performance of this plant. So we do expect to be able to ramp it up and ramp it down. But it's important to know that is likely, days, if not weeks, to make those adjustments. It's a biological system and it simply takes time to make them.
Question on how it operates.
Uh-huh.
If they come out of secondary water treatment, is all of this water going to the ponds then? Is that the intent? And then out to the fields, or so how do you?
I would defer to Jake on how they want to operate it in the end of the day. There's flexibility during the winter time. Absolutely. All the water is going to the ponds, being that there's no more land application allowed during that time period. However, during the summer, during the irrigation season, I think it just depends on how the port wants to manage the pond levels. They've got other ponds beyond Farm 3 and 4, and there's reasons to manage the levels. So I could see certain scenarios where they're sending water from this plant directly to a field. That's certainly possible. But Jake or Miff, do you want to expand on that?
It's definitely seasonal and operationally dependent. If we get into the spring and we need to go direct with the water while we're still doing some continued maintenance on some of those floating pump stations you saw today or something, we have the flexibility to do that.
Okay. It was interesting to see the parametrics information where it had different nitrate levels and how it would affect what could be applied where and how much fresh water and agronomic rates and when you meet your agronomic rates and things like that. I mean, that's why I was just wondering if it varies coming out of the secondary water treatment. I would think that would make that job really difficult if it varied very often.
Yes, and when I say vary, it's vary on purpose. So
right.
For instance, if we need a certain nitrate concentration that helps manage the land application system, we can ramp up or ramp down the plant to be able to hit that concentration. It does take time. It's not something that happens overnight, but with good planning, with Parametrics has done some excellent work on the land application side to provide some flexibility for how the system's operated. But that's the overall intent, is the port will generally know where water needs to be sent, what budgets are available, both from a hydraulic standpoint and a nitrogen loading standpoint, in what fields. So flexibility is of the utmost importance in how we design things, and I think Parametrics would agree. You don't want your hand tied behind your back when you're farming. I know a lot of you are farmers, and you're subject to the weather and all sorts of things. So
yeah, Nick, if you can hear me, Lauren and I, we have a couple slides too at the end if there's time to kind of follow up on some of those topics, more from just like a high level principle standpoint, less technical and more illustrative of how that range helps in the planning side.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Any other questions on the treatment itself? I'll jump to the big one, the project cost estimate. So I'll kind of caveat this with, the estimate is based on our own AquaZone database of wastewater construction costs. We do work all over the country, and anytime we're doing construction work, we will log the bid results and construction contract values into our own database. So we use that to inform our cost estimates. We do solicit project-specific quotes from suppliers and vendors for things like pipes and valves. We are generally aware of the bid results in the region for similar projects. And so we couple all that information and we provide a planning level cost estimate. It is by no means a representation of a contractor's true bid, but we do the best we can to sharpen our pencils. Some key considerations are geotechnical work is still ongoing. We're currently drilling holes out next to this site right now, so we can further understand the soil characteristics and design the slopes the way that they need to be designed. So there's a couple of things that are still up in the air, unrelated to the treatment process, but will ultimately influence the cost. So with all that considered, our current planning level cost estimate puts us between $70 and $79 million. That is a fully loaded cost estimate, including all soft costs. That's engineering, construction management, contractors overhead and profit. So I consider that a fully loaded cost at this point in time. It's, you know, it's a big number, but I am happy to report that it hasn't really drifted far from our initial estimates. We're doing everything that we can on the design side to keep those costs under control. In fact, I know there was a clean water state revolving fund topic on earlier on the agenda. As part of this project and as part of a requirement of that loan, DEQ wants to see what they call a value engineering report, which is essentially a formal study of the design and a formal study of cost saving measures. So I have 5 engineers on my team solely dedicated to do an engineering study, and we are actively adopting their ideas on a weekly basis. Not that we as engineers try and design things expensively, but if you get a third party to look at your work, you know, they catch things that you miss. Stuff that I look at every single day, you know, you kind of get tunnel vision and you go blind to what's right in front of you. So I do think there is value to this value engineering study. I know it's more work on the administrative side and the engineering side, but ultimately it is serving to save the port money, save this project money.
We of course want the project to work as designed and to do the job.
Absolutely.
However, we also have to consider the people paying for it. And
Yes.
so I appreciate that sensitivity.
Yeah. Next milestones. So as I mentioned, April 1 of this year, just a couple of weeks from now, we are on track to submit our 90% design package to DEQ. I've got some really rough estimates as to what their review timelines might be. I am guessing a 4 to 6 month review where we will be working very closely with DEQ, making sure that they understand the plans. We're adopting their review comments. We will integrate all of their review comments into the final design package, which will ultimately go to bidding, which I have planned for late this year, fourth quarter of 2026 is when we hope to be able to bid this project for a general contractor, with construction beginning either late this year or early 2027. So key takeaways are the project is progressing on schedule. Final design is currently underway. We're on track to hit our design submissions to DEQ in a couple of weeks. And we're doing the best we can to balance all of these big priorities for the port. So with that, I'm happy to take more questions, or perhaps you have questions of the parametrics team. I understand Joe's got a couple of slides that he may want to share in addition to this topic.
Questions or comments at this stage?
Thank you. Of course.
So I do have questions, but maybe I'll wait until after.
Okay. Parametrics.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear that. And then
Okay, great. Joe and Lauren, can I pass the torch to you two?
Yep, sure can. Let me get my share pulled up. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, great. So this is just a couple slides. We do have, at the end of this, we have more from you, like previous commissioner meetings where we went through some more of the details, but this is meant to be a little bit more high level for everyone, just to kind of echo off of Aqua's work. So the main things that I'll be talking about is how we calculate the capacity in the port system. Because John, you know, you mentioned the report that you guys have. That's kind of that's the detailed analysis that Lauren and our team put together that went to the state. We're going to try to, instead of diving into that, we're going to kind of step back more like the principle of how that works. And then basically how that relates to the 40 to 60 milligram per liter targets. And then we got a little demo that Lauren's going to pull up, a cool tool that she developed based on all the work her and Jake have done, and basically kind of a dashboard of all the different knobs that can be turned for this system. So stop me at any point along the way. It's just a couple slides, but the main thing I want to first start with is how do we calculate the capacity in the port system? And again, capacity is what drives the treatment, right? So when we're developing a capacity assessment, the outputs from this analysis is really what is going to help Nick's team determine how much treatment we need for the nitrogen based on the flows that we're getting. So you don't need to pay too much attention to the text here. We'll just walk you through. So we've got currently about 2.9 billion gallons of water that comes into the port system every year. And at full build out, and by that I mean the water treatment plant would be designed for additional flow in the future of up to 3.5 billion gallons. You need to think of those flows not just as water, but two different things. It's water and nitrogen. And obviously there's a lot of other things, but we're going to keep that. There's also cash, right? It also represents money, whether from dischargers paying to the utility, but for the sake of the capacity assessment, we're going to talk about just water and nitrogen. That goes to the proposed secondary treatment system. They've already got the anaerobic digesters. That's going to remove nitrogen from the port's reuse water, but we still want some left to be used as fertilizer to benefit the crops. So the question really is, how much do we remove? Do we remove a lot of it or do we remove a little bit of it? And somewhere is a sweet spot. That water then goes to the storage ponds, and I want to pause there because what this represents is since the port stopped land applying during the winter season between November and February each year, now there is a requirement. We have to store water. That has to be stored. And so they have 2 billion gallons of water that between November and February has to be filled up. And those are already sized, those are already built. So we know that we have that amount. After February, between March and October, that water has to leave the pond or has to leave that bucket because now you've got the next winter season you got to store. So we have to get that water out. When we get that water out, there's however much nitrogen it is, it also has to go. And it becomes a very complex optimization problem of a bunch of checker pieces across the ports program of where that water and nitrogen goes. And so you have different fields, farms, field sizes, and different crops. You can think of each one of these circles as a bucket of water and a bucket of nitrogen. Depending on the type of crop, some crops take more water and more or less nitrogen. So each crop in each field has a different size bucket of both nitrogen and water. And so depending on the crop, you have all these potential different iterations. Just so you know, I asked ChatGPT real quickly, if you have 43 different crops, which is the number of crops in the ports program, and 176 fields, how many different combinations could you have? And it was like 1.6 times 10 to the 281 different potential combinations. So it's astronomical. The point being is when we say flexibility, what I'm saying is that when Laura and I submit something to the state saying, here's the capacity assessment, we're picking one or two of those infinite possibilities of combinations to be representative of typical conditions. Out of those 10 to the 281 potential possibilities, most of them aren't going to have that much of a meaningful impact on the program, right? Because they're all about the same. But the point is just there's a lot of variability. We don't know what the farmer is going to want to do in the future or what the port's operations are going to be. So we're trying to come up with representative scenarios and then give a range of the treatment targets that we think will encompass that whole range of possibilities. So again, I'm just emphasizing we have to simplify things to be able to help make decisions, but there is a lot of complexity on how this gets operated. Okay, so then let's zoom in on one of those buckets, right? So here's where it gets more complex. You've heard people talk about, well, what about how do we count or measure TKN nitrogen or the ammonium or what fraction is plant available? Well, the reason that matters is because, and agronomic rates is, we're talking about the size of the bucket is the agronomic rate of that nitrogen at each field for each different crop. But we're also talking about how much of that bucket depending on how DEQ is regulating the situation, is taken up by that bucket. So Lauren's got this really cool diagram. I'll just read it here real quick. The port's farm capacity is currently nitrogen limited. This means that when the nitrogen bucket is full at each of those fields, no more reuse water can be applied, even if the water bucket isn't full. So secondary treatment targets were optimized between 40 to 60 milligrams per liter so that the more reuse water can be used to fill the nitrogen buckets of most fields, right? So if you got a lot of nitrogen in your reuse water and you fill up the nitrogen bucket, it doesn't matter if your water bucket's only half full, you got to turn off the spigot, and now you got to bring fresh water like groundwater in to make up the difference. I'll show what that looks like in a second. But in that bucket, this is where there's a lot of debate that on why the agronomic rates are set the way they are, and then also how we account for soil nitrogen is right now, just as a kind of a high level rule of thumb, the current method that we use to account for nitrogen in the soil, it takes up about 35% of the bucket, meaning the agronomic rate, is already just in the soil. So that's not an amount we can apply, it's just already there. Then, depending on where the treatment target is at, we can take about 35% of the nitrogen come from reuse water, and then the rest is going to come from fertilizer, crop residues, could be manure, etc. So you want to try to optimize this nitrogen bucket to try to get as much reuse water as you can, but you also want to be able to put all your water down.
Okay.
Okay.
I've seen your papers too, that you're only going up to 60 or 70% of that number for safety concerns.
Safety, it's also a timing issue. And Lauren, chime in here if I miss something, but part of what's going on there, John, is that when we're doing this, we're not considering the timing of application. So some crops require a very specific amount of nitrogen at a very specific time, like let's say in the spring. And so Jake and the other farmers, they're going to need a fertilizer to go apply that very specific amount. Like, for example, you're not going to, if you need, let's say 30 to 50 pounds, you can't flood it with a bunch of reuse water and oversaturate it hydraulically to get your 30 to 50 pounds. You need to go take a commercial fertilizer, targeted application. So by taking only 70%, we're assuming that just to be safe, we're given a 30% buffer for the farmers to do what they need to do with commercial. They might not have to, it's just, we can't really build the timing into our model. So that's a way to do it. Does that make sense? We could argue about whether it should be 80 or 75, but 70 seemed pretty safe.
Just to add to that, if I can too, Joe, that agronomic rate limit, we like to set that 30% buffer because even if you go over that agronomic rate limit by 1 pound, which can happen, that's still considered a violation. So you have to leave in some sort of operational buffer to make sure you're maintaining compliance with the permit.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Okay, so I know this might be a little small on the screen, so, and that's okay. I'll kind of tell you what you're seeing here, but to emphasize, so I just talked about the nitrogen bucket, but now I'm going to talk about the water bucket. And so, because remember, we got to get that 2 billion gallons of pond empty in about 8 months. And I think Miff, you brought this up over a lot of calls. You're like, we only have 8 months to get this water out. And I think you're like, does everyone understand what that means? 2 billion gallons of water needs to get moved in 8 months. And setting aside what
there's more coming in at the same time.
Yes, right. But I would think that this first year or two for the secondary water treatments,
the crops can do. Go ahead.
Those ponds are going to have a higher nitrogen, or the water coming out. It's going to be even harder to get rid of, isn't it?
Sure.
Then once it's treated, it goes down.
The first year challenge, the second year challenge.
Yeah.
Don't have treated water, have control over the nitrogen, so the crop planting has to be far more robust. Yeah, we're on all this.
Okay, I'm back on. Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
I think it's snowing here in Spokane, so I might be getting a little internet problems. Okay, so what this figure is trying to show is the bar on the top of each little is 40 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, and the bar on the bottom is 100 milligrams of liter per nitrogen. What you're seeing is like the light blue with the little atoms of nitrogen that represents your reuse water, And then the blue bar is representing your fresh water. And so what you're seeing is like for alfalfa takes a lot of water. It's got a lot of water to fill in its bucket. And so at 100 milligrams per liter of nitrogen reuse water, you can only put a little bit of reuse water on it, and then you'd have to use a bunch of fresh water to keep that alfalfa alive. Well, that's not the best use of alfalfa in terms of a reuse program. If you get a little bit lower, now you can actually put a lot of reuse water down with less fresh water. And then, as I was saying, each crop is different, right? So how much reuse you can use depending on the agronomic rate in the ET, or the amount of irrigation demand each crop has, changes how those different buckets are. So again, it's a big nitrogen balance optimization problem, and then it's also a water optimization problem across the different crops. Okay, so this is the graph that would have been in the report, or it may have been a table, but what we're showing here is for each of these different total nitrogen targets in the treatment system. So purple's 40, orange is 50, 60, 70, and then you have your maximum pond capacity. In that winter period, at 70 milligrams per liter, we are right there at the top of the ponds. So, we don't want to get close to that total maximum capacity, because, there's nowhere else for that water to go, because we've ceased any winter land application. When you get down to the 40 to 60 range, now we've got a decent buffer between the max storage, and we're able to get rid of that water during the summer season. And then if you kept running this model out at steady state, you'd see it kind of come back to the same period every year. The other thing I want to emphasize is this is one scenario of a bucket of crops that Lauren, Jake, and Miff, we all work together to pick, like, here's what we think we can do, here's what's typical. That's what we're modeling, and I think Mike Hyatt's on today. We're trying to pick something that's reasonable, that's not like because again, what we're trying to show is they wouldn't overtop their pond. So we need to be conservative and not pick an aggressive crop plan that would somehow lead to too much water being in the system, and then they overtop during the winter, right? But as I was saying, there's 10 to the 281 different potential combinations of those crops and fields. So that's the level of protection we're designed to. That's why you'll see 70, and then the 40 to 60 is kind of that range that we were targeting. Okay, with that in mind, this is the last slide, and then I'm going to have Lauren show something which I think is really cool and helpful to illustrate this. And I ran this by Nick and Cody as well, because this is not perfect, but I think it helps illustrate the point. This is what you call like a diminishing return curve. So the point of this chart is on the y-axis, you've got reuse concentration target. So we want to go from, like, let's say 110 down to some value. And then the x-axis would represent the increasing cost needed to achieve that. So if you guys remember the original cost estimate that I think Consor gave during a presentation to the commissioners, I think it was in the 200 million, 180, maybe 150, it was 150, $200 million for that system. And that was to take the water from about 110 down to 7 milligrams per liter. The reason for that is because we were operating under the assumption that the permit condition that to land apply during the winter, you have to have your nitrogen at 7 milligrams per liter, because that's below the 10 milligram per liter federal threshold for groundwater, right? Now, since Aqua is involved, we've changed that target, and the reason is we've stopped doing winter irrigation. We're not land applying during the winter. And so at this point, it becomes a compliance question with a lot of judgment on what do we need to treat to, given that we have the storage, to be in compliance with our agronomic rate limits on the fields and make sure we're not over applying nitrogen. And that's a very different question. So to illustrate this, if you were to keep the current nitrogen concentration, it's labeled here at 120, and not do anything, your cost would be basically zero. As you move out, let's say you were to target that 7 milligrams per liter, you'd be somewhere down here, you come out on the cost curve, you're going to start getting into this exponential part of the curve, which means for each additional dollar you spend, you get very little additional treatment, right? And I think anyone who's in this, I think this is kind of a general concept that applies in a lot of different fields, but in engineering, like if I know I'm doing a filtration system and you tell me to get 50% of the sediment out, okay, easy. I put in a small couple filters and we're there. If you say you need 90% removal, and they're like, okay, now I need a polishing system to make sure I get there. If you say 95% and then you say 99%, now we start getting doubling, right, in the amount of pods we need to get that incremental amount out of that water, and your costs start to go up. So again, this is not specific to the port. I don't want everyone to look at this and say, oh, this is meant to illustrate, but my point being is that Lauren's labeled this 60 and 40. I think if I had, and I'm not saying that Cody and Nick's team should do this, but if we were to try to come up with our own curve representing like the consort method, maybe some cost value saving initiatives, Nick, and where we're at right now, I think we'd find that we're at 50% reduction from like the 100 to 120 range down to the 40 to 60 range. At 50% removal, I think we're probably in that more reasonable cost curve section of the cost curve. Just from again, I'm saying this from an overall principle, not necessarily with backing up with numbers. So with that, any questions on that before Lauren? I think if you could pull up your little demo.
One second, I gotta figure out how to use Zoom. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Maybe zoom in just a little bit, Lauren.
Okay. How's that?
That's
Very
better.
good.
Much better.
Perfect. So, as Joe said, I built this tool for us to kind of look at how changing the reuse nitrogen concentration impacts the port's system from a capacity perspective and also from a cost perspective when you think about treatment costs and also fertilizer and crop production costs. So what we have here is a nice little toggle tool where you can adjust the reuse nitrogen target concentration, and then you will have changes to these boxes here below, which I will explain. This first box is crop revenue. So that is how much money you're going to make on any given crop mix or lose. We've got fertilizer savings. So reuse water, nitrogen in the reuse water offsets fertilizer needs in the system. So trying to balance that nitrogen concentration in the reuse such that we can still get the beneficial use of nitrogen out of it and reuse, save some fertilizer costs here. There's also fertilizer penalty. So if you need to purchase any fertilizer at all, because if you go all the way down here, say your effluent nitrogen concentration is now 10 milligrams per liter, now you have to buy fertilizer nitrogen to make up for some of those losses in the reuse system. I'll go back up to 110 here. So treatment costs, that's what Nick was just discussing. How much does your treatment system cost? This net profit loss calculates all your revenue from crops, savings from fertilizer, costs from fertilizer you had to buy, and then treatment costs as well. This baseline just compares it to a baseline scenario, assuming we had no treatment at all. Reuse water use, that's the full amount of reuse water that we need to basically get out during the growing season in any given year. So that's that 3.5 billion gallon build out flow in this case. And this average reuse coverage is showing the percent of reuse water that we can use to meet a given crop mix irrigation demand.
So like of the total crop demand of water, how much of it comes from reuse, right?
Exactly.
Lauren, can you real quick give them the disclaimer that these numbers, yes.
Yeah, these numbers, please do not focus too intently on any of these numbers because they are just estimates. This tool is just meant to be a visualization sort of optimization tool that shows you how changing this reuse effluent concentration can impact so many different variables. I have worked in actual profit and loss values for crops that I've worked with the farmer to come up with. I have also worked in Aqua's current estimate for their treatment system and then Consor's old estimate to kind of roughly estimate wastewater treatment costs. But otherwise, these are just estimates, and this model doesn't account for absolutely everything. It is just a visualization tool.
Yep. So, and I just want to say that because when we start scrolling this and someone's going to look at it and say, what, we can get a revenue of whatever, you know, on that number, that is not the intent of it. But because what we want to show you, if you can go to the top, Lauren, scroll all the way to 110, right? Because if you go to 110, we say, oh, look, net profit loss. We didn't do any treatment and we're making money on our crops. This is good, right? But as I showed earlier, we have to get to like 70 because we got to get all the water out every year. Can't store it if it's not at least at 70, right? So that's the point is that, and there's no way for Lauren and I to build that into the cost, right? It's just, we know we can't have I can't monetize the value of overtopping the pond. It would be catastrophic, potentially catastrophic, right? So the point being, you have to have some treatment. This is meant to now say, okay, if we change this, how do the other variables like fertilizer costs, reuse offset, crop mix come into play? And I think, Lauren, if you could, at 70, maybe focus on the crops. And Miff, I'd love to hear your comments on here about alfalfa and whether we like alfalfa to be the majority of our program. But at 70 milligrams per liter, your alfalfa is making up 25% of your program. And by the way, there's some optimization in the background here. So, you know, Lauren and I aren't necessarily saying this is perfect, but like it's, as you change your slider, it's saying, oh, if you take out more nitrogen, now we can bring in ryegrass and we can bring in onion and we can bring in more highly profitable crops for the farmers. But it's only because now we've reduced the nitrogen to the point where it can be used more liberally on the fields without the risk of having agronomic rate exceedance, right? So then there's a trade-off between how much you treat versus what you can do across the field program. So yeah, you know, at 70, you're basically a lot of alfalfa, which is negative value. And then as you scroll down to lower treatment, okay, now you're able to move to some more profitable crops, but you're also removing the nitrogen, which was offsetting fertilizer needs, right? So all of these are interconnected, and you can kind of see how those scale. So, sorry, did I miss, Lauren, was there something else you're going to say? I didn't want to, may have got us off track a little bit. Okay.
Nope, you got me.
Okay, so any,
Situation.
Yeah.
But was this helpful for?
It is.
Understanding?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the point behind it.
Right, so I guess my question is, let's say we get this in place. We've got a target, we know what the target is, we know the kind of the gallonage we're dealing with. Are we gonna have a true modeling linear tool that the port and the farmers can work together to optimize crops, be able to? I mean, this is a math question, really. It can be done with linear regression and we could optimize and be able to then just justify back to powers that be that are regulating, so that we've had a strategy that port can work with this grower or growers and meet that and have confidence we're sharing valid data with the state.
I think it's a great suggestion. It's absolutely something that I would recommend, you know, Aqua and Parametrics collaborate with the port and your farming stakeholders on. I think that's a wonderful.
I guess I think that given any economic year for the farmers, you know, I think that it would be really helpful if there was a tool that could take their economic reality and plug in your reality, you know, the port's reality, and get to multiple optimization choices.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, and then you lower your risk and lower the farmer's risk as well. But it will take somebody to do some serious modeling to have a tool like that, but that's a start.
Yeah,
That's a start, but it's.
We have the people.
Okay, clearly you have the people, but to me, to comply with the regulators, it seems like it's gonna be very important.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a really good point to raise.
So I just want to confirm, have we gotten a level in which we are going to be allowed to land apply at? As far as nitrate level?
You mean as far as adjustment to economic rates? So there has been some leeway on the land mustard permit side of things, and there's been some letters for certain specific crops for us as well, and there's more to come off of that. So, yes,
But has it been,
fully, completely revised for every single crop? No. Okay. There's still more work to do on that. Potatoes would be one of my biggest as well.
right, so we're fairly comfortable that we will be permitted
Yes,
to land apply at these levels that you're talking about?
correct.
Well, we have land application levels already.
Yes,
Yeah, we
Right.
could,
What's in the
we
bond?
could actually apply right now without any secondary treatment and probably not have any violations. We have enough grant.
We have plenty of ground at this point in time, if that's more your question.
If that's what your
More
question
than
is.
acres, we have.
Right,
more
well,
than-
that is the alternative question. Yeah.
Trying to get there, because how much is this secondary treatment project gonna cost?
About 80 million.
80 million.
About 80.
Well,
So
I'm hoping we're down closer around 50.
So,
For 30, but
So that $80 million, doesn't that include a 30%?
it does.
It's that we've dropped the contingency value to 15% at this stage, which is still $8 million.
Right, in your design,
Correct.
where you're at in your design.
Correct.
At 80.
Right.
And we also plan to run a lot of this work too on this with our PMs and our engineers.
So with your
As far as construction goes. which will
with your
save us-
pond full like you are right now, you could get that all out on the ground this summer, keep up with what's continuing on and stay in compliance currently.
Currently.
Right,
Yeah,
we're
Joe is-
assuming things don't change.
Correct. What Joe was alluding to my love of alfalfa is right now, that's what's a lot of our program is alfalfa.
Right.
And right now, I'd rather not grow alfalfa.
Right, the most
Not a choice.
negative thing you could be doing. Yeah,
Yep,
got it.
exactly.
So right now, we got a
Can't
lot
lose
of
more.
alfalfa to make the program work, and about 2,000 acres worth of cropland, and the vertigo right now is alfalfa.
And alfalfa they're giving away.
So what about?
Well, the price of
I guess maybe I'm covering Rick, but why do we need if we can do it without the secondary treatment?
And not raising the cost
Not
that
raising-
go on to, well, it raises the cost for the farmer, it raises the cost for the producers. It are the food processors, it raises the cost to the consumer. Every time we do this by a large amount, so why are we doing this?
Partly could be odors. We have yet to run water out of that big lagoon. The other part would be consistency on the amount of nitrate going to the field that is more consistent so that we can actually track it. Because right now, through our digesters, it's way better than it used to be, but there's still fluctuation there. And the secondary treatment would make that, we would know exactly the amount of nitrate going through fields.
Well, and I understand that, but I think it could, $80 million to monitor
I-
those nitrate levels seems mind-boggling to me.
I'm not saying one, I'm just saying what the pros and the.
I know
what the money is. Somebody's gotta pay for it.
What about room for growth? If we have enough land now with what we have, but do we have growth? Could we grow? Could we take on more?
Yeah, it'd be more alfalfa. I mean, you're talking more alfalfa.
Yeah, we're just.
Still operating right now.
Just lose a lot more money.
Let's use losses
So this-
on the farm.
So this design you're doing, can it be done in a, let's call it a lighter fashion that, maybe you build out of phase one and you move these nitrate numbers a little ways so you have more leeway on, or you're just doing this right now you'd have to bypass some of the water to do that, I assume.
Correct. That is correct. And that does complicate the gas upgrading project that is associated with the digesters.
Okay, right, okay.
But to answer your question, so that I think the best way to, shave costs and phase this is not so much to phase it in terms of nitrogen removal, but to phase it in terms of flow capacity.
I see.
Like
you could treat part of the water.
Well, we could treat what the port is discharging today and maybe not build that 30% capacity in. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see.
We are building runway for some growth with this current design.
So how, like I say, your model, you could show, hopefully, that by doing this, you could raise a different, better money-making crop than alfalfa.
I think that would be the that would be interesting math.
That would be a positive
Yes,
impact to the bottom line.
that's correct.
To kind of address, your original comment there, Rick, too, it's about control. I mean, at this point in time, it's either keep expanding the farmland every time you add another industry, or you build secondary treatment in lieu of keep expanding the farmlands and taking on the rest of the farm. Expansion of farmland is from here on out to be extremely difficult. There is nowhere else for us to expand without breaking down into dryland ground, and the port doesn't have water rights to be able to do it either. So you have to make a mixture of things here to control what you want to do with the future of the port is.
Right.
More industry means we have to do something.
Well,
It means something in some form of a treatment process to control the nitrogen to get to that point. So, I mean, farms are expensive.
more industry doesn't necessarily mean food processors.
Correct?
Right.
100%.
So we're not adding more food processors. Why are we raising the cost to a project that could potentially force food processors to raise their prices and or shut their doors?
What
was the point about above 70 part, 70 parts per million or whatever it is, milligrams of not having enough storage capacity? What was that on that graph?
You didn't want to overflow the pond.
Right. Basically, the more loadings I have in the pond, the more acres of alfalfa and other stuff I need to get the pond to empty. If I don't have that, that's where the ponds can get out of whack. If I don't have enough crops planned within the acres that we have now to get into this exponential problem where I don't get these long-term storages completely empty. Let's say I leave 200 million gallons in one of these big cells and I go into the next winter. I will progressively fall behind because I physically have to move all that water within the 245-day period. And you just start falling off. That's why I said the next 2 years is likely probably some of the most difficult to get the water out there if I fall off that block.
Yeah, so just back to the analogy, with a higher concentration with like no treatment, you fill up your nitrogen buckets right away, and then you can't keep filling the water bucket, even though the crop can take a lot more water because the nitrogen's in the reuse water. So by getting it to 70, you're able to fill up a lot more of the water bucket before the nitrogen bucket fills up.
And you don't give your farmers the flexibility to apply nitrogen when they need to maximize crop production.
Well, and again, they're gonna have to apply nitrogen.
They won't
At
have the
some point.
capacity though, if it's maxed out at 100 or 100.
Right, but at some point they will have to apply nitrogen.
But if they don't have the
Depending
rooms
on
to
what,
do it.
right, but depending on what our levels are, is gonna depend on what they can do, and they're gonna have to at some point, so.
Sure, but if we don't treat, I think that removes options, I think, right?
Well.
Yep. Yeah, if I could just to address that concern, because there's some other things that are going on right now. So as Miff mentioned, and we've been working on this for a while, but we got, a researcher from Oregon State involved on trying to look at the nitrogen and ammonium availability. And I won't go into the details, but essentially what was approved by DEQ, and I think is based on some really good science, is that only about 83% of that current water, of the nitrogen in that water, is actually plant available. It's not like bound up in organic proteins or other things. So only 83% is counted in that. And then the other thing is, one thing that we are planning for, or that Lauren built into the model, is DQ had said in the future, they're going to change the way that soil, or they intended to, they haven't made a final decision, but they intended to change the way that the soil nitrogen was calculated. So on one end, the way that the accounting happens is that there will be less nitrogen applied. So that means we have more capacity. But in the future, the soil calculation method is going to change, which means we have less capacity. And so my point being that those things are still changing. And so that 70 milligrams per liter that I said could change again, depending on the way that the state regulates it. So, that's where it's not a direct answer to solve what you said, which is, well, we got to apply the nitrogen at some rate anyway. But my point is just sometimes that is a moving target. The actual amount that can be applied is changing because number one, agronomic rates can change and there's been approvals for them. Two, the way that you account for the nitrogen that's being applied is changing. It went from 100% down to 83%. And then three, the way that you account for the nitrogen that's stored in soil is changing potentially. And all three of those completely change what I just shared with you. Right? And that's why we're looking at a range.
Which way do you think that the soil?
The soil is if DQ follows through with the way that they want to, it's going to increase the soil nitrogen by what, like 30%, Lauren?
I think it was like 15%.
15. So what it will mean is that there will be in that bucket, there will already be more soil nitrogen, so you can apply less. So it takes away capacity.
And it's gonna be a forever moving target, I assume.
Well, I think I
That's all
don't know
you
if
can
Mike
assume.
Height's
That's all
still.
I assume, right? Nobody's gonna sign a deal with you from the government that says, you've done all these things, we'll agree to these terms for the next 25 years, right?
Oh,
No
right,
one's
no.
No one's gonna give us that certainty, right?
No, of course not.
No, because keep in mind, we also have an RAFS, which is remedial investigation and feasibility study that the port is doing. And I won't go into the details on that, Miff. I'd leave that up to you if you wanted to, but that's like a further study on what's happening with nitrogen. And we don't know what that would show. And if that led the agency to make different decisions, then, this could change again. So again, that's why, I don't know, I think Nick and Cody could probably appreciate our desire to use ranges because we try to help provide a range of potential outcomes that could fall into to help you guys make decisions.
I would also add, in the beginning, I've always been against secondary treatment. I mean, the idea of pulling value out of water by spending more money is just not wise. But I think foundationally, there's some other elements at play aside from just the nitrogen water. One of those, we have a DEQ compliance schedule that says we have to install secondary treatment by 2029 right now. Right. So that's why we're obviously on this course. But in addition to that, with the depth of our ponds, the secondary treatments the only way we're going to remove the remaining 200 milligrams per liter of BOD, which is an issue. And at the time, looking at pond depths versus size, we're building ponds on ground that's worth $20,000 an acre. We need to keep it as small as possible, and that's why they got so deep. To avoid the BOD issue, we would have had to stay under 18 feet in depth, which would be monstrosity of 5 times to store the water. I also struggle with the idea that the treatment requirements today are going to be the same in 5 years. So having secondary treatment in place gives us some control devices to potentially be able to accommodate the next DEQ requirement as far as, maybe Nick can check require in other locations. But we're trying to stay in front of the curve a little bit to be prepared for those changes. And from the very beginning of all of this, DEQ's consistent theme has been really pushing consistency. We sat through many meetings with them talking about, well, it's 110 or it's 70 or we want a consistent number so we can evaluate how much emission is going on. It is hot there. A lot of hot air.
So maybe just to reiterate, we have an agreement with DEQ to do this.
Yes, it's part of the land application permit.
More of a compliance schedule than an agreement.
It's a compliance
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think DEQ agreed to it.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, DEQ, yes.
Got it.
Questions? Any more questions or discussion?
I would just reiterate, I think we need to look at all options, and I understand what everybody's saying. Right. But I also understand that this can be very difficult for everybody involved as far as cost, because in the end, the consumer is going to pay the most. And potentially loss of jobs in our. So we really need to think about what we're doing, and I really wish the state would look at the value of reuse a lot more than what they're considering, because it works. It's proven it works if it's managed properly, so.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, presenters, we appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Is there any other old business to come before us today? We're gonna go into new business, resolution 2026-02, updating banking signatory, little house paperwork here.
Yes, this is because we've had a change in commissioner and we need a new signature card, which also means once we provide this to the bank, you will all be getting emails asking for verification from Bank BO.
Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the signature changes, please?
I move to approve resolution 2026 -02, updating the bank signatory.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2026-02, updating banking signatories. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. ODOT IGA, please, or whoever.
So in your packet under new business is an IGA. This is an agreement between the port and ODOT on the salt shed and equipment storage that's out at 738 I-84.
Is this kind of a continuation of something?
It's been, well, no.
Well, we've never had.
We've never had anything.
We've never had
We've had lots of debates about who owned the
County
property.
thought they owned it, was making a deal with ODOT.
We bet the port owned
The
it.
port.
Okay.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Sam has reviewed the agreement if you have questions and.
Yeah. Sam, do you have concerns about the agreement, or is it okay to go?
Well, I had some suggestions, but ultimately, it's acceptable to me as written, especially considered ODOT is involved. There's some hazardous waste or some waste risks, but if I were starting over, I would use a little bit stronger language, but I think it is a reasonable proposal by the state. ODOT, they've been using our property for quite a while, and we have them in a vulnerable position, but I think there's no need to do so. The agreement's acceptable to me as written.
Okay, thank you. That was my only concern when I read it, is salt and contamination and something like that. So I know, as long as we're okay with that, it's written strongly enough. That's great. Anyone interested in making a motion?
I'd move to approve the ODOT IGA and authorize our executive director to sign on our behalf.
Okay,
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. I don't know that I need to repeat that. So Lisa, you would be set up to sign for that. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Carries. Airport discussion I put on there, or asked to put on there. But many of my questions were answered on the tour today when I saw, there's not tenants of the port, but neighbors, I guess I would say now, that I have concerns about. So, but if we don't have control over that, so that was one of my concerns. Another was the future of the port, and maintaining the viability of the airport going forward until such time as something different happens. But that can be also addressed in our strategic plan, if that's okay with everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would like to comment on that just because I live out there and see what's going on, and we are the sponsors of the airport. And we are putting ourselves at risk, allowing those plumes of smoke and steam and dust that are in that airport hazard zone to be going on. And it's I would not want to be a pilot flying in there when they combust that steam that comes up out of there and blocks your view coming right into the landing strip, and it is right at the landing strip. And as sponsors, I think we need to really take a hard look at that and what our responsibilities are to that hazard zone. I made comments on the ponds too as well. You know, my dad was a pilot. I know pilots, and a pilot just left. And, you know, being the sponsor, that's our job to make sure that that airport is viable, even though maybe it's not our priority, and maybe we don't want to have that priority. Maybe we want to give that sponsorship to somebody else. But when we do have it, we should take care of it. It's a public airport. I get it. It's, you know, you got to call in and it's restricted space over the top, but at some point it may be a really, really valuable asset to the area, and we'd hate to make silly choices or not defend our airport because we are the sponsor of it. So I think we really need to take a good look at what's going on out there, and I've got pictures and things. I do know that they're having a hearing on it tomorrow at the court to take care of the nuisances, but that still doesn't protect the airport.
So I would ask, have we had any complaints from pilots or from FAA about any of those issues? Nothing.
Are they aware of those issues though, too? I mean,
Maybe not. It doesn't get used a lot right here.
right.
So if somebody was flying in and they did, if that's something like that, like Kelly explained there, was happening.
Well, it's happening.
We could have, I mean, we would have probably got a complaint maybe. I don't know. But we have.
It's too late once it happens and something happens,
Yeah.
though. That's the, you know, we have to mitigate those issues before they happen. We don't want to be responsible for not taking care of that issue before it happened. I mean, airport hazards you don't get a second chance.
I guess my request would be that as long as if we could inquire with the FAA, they have very strict rules about things. At least according to my son-in-law, it's a pilot. So, and you know, bird strikes are serious and things like that. So as long as we're taking care of it, according to their rules, I'm good with that. But we could just maybe check. That'd be my request.
What about the airport manager photo?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. He loves that plan.
Yeah.
Had to get rid of that.
Is there any other new business to come before us?
I should have spoken up at old business. You did get our notification that we're short one budget committee member. Yes, I sent an email and I copied all of you and I sent it to Gary because it's your representative.
And I have some.
Oh, you do? Okay, great.
Yeah. So Rob Crum from was willing to serve on the budget committee.
Okay, so could you take action to appoint him to that position?
I would move that we appoint Rob Crum to the budget committee.
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Good catch.
thank
I
you.
forgot about it.
And if you wouldn't mind maybe emailing me his contact information.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
That'd be great.
Can you remind us when those meetings are?
It is next commission meeting, which is April 8th at 3:30 in the afternoon. Lisa Kern won't be at the first meeting, but she is available for the second meeting, which would be May 11th. Is that right?
I think the calendar would be in your
Okay,
previous
okay,
packet.
all right, I'll look. I just wanted to mentally.
Yeah, we had the whole calendar in the previous packet, so if you go to the tab under previous packet, that would be last month's packet, which had the whole calendar in it.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other new business?
Speaking of Becky Bryant, I guess this is probably follow-up as well, but two items. The money that the state withheld, the 15% on the project's going to Hefner and Ione. They have replenished that fund to the full amount, so that's great for us.
Yes.
That was good news. Also, I spoke with Becky Bryant about our strategic plan. They have not raise the level. I told her we just wanted to move forward. Got an email earlier this morning from Ryan DeGraw to, we'll do the intake. She talked to me a little bit about companies that are doing plans for other ports.
Okay.
And you ran into, FTS Group, who did our, economic part of our strategic plan the last 2 times. I did tell them we would be going out for an RFP soon.
Okay.
In fact, they talked to Marta at the city and Marta tracked me down saying, they're asking about the Port of Morrow, so I went over and talked to them, but.
Good.
So hopefully we can get, the funds committed from the state and get an RFP out to get that accomplished before the end of the year.
What's our timeline then, you think, for starting the strategic plan process?
I mean, I would hope 60 days, it could be 90. But
that's just starting. It's a long process.
Yeah.
and different companies have, it's interesting. So, well, we're a unique sized port in the state of Oregon, right? So you've got Port of Portland, you've got us, and then you've got a couple mids and a lot of smalls. And some of them are getting their strategic planning done by their former port manager.
Sure.
But there's a company called Points that's contracted for a few of them, so we'll reach out.
The other potential, and I don't really know what the number is. So when you issue tax exempt bonds, there's something called arbitrage that happens if you earn more money on the bond funds than what you're paying for the bond funds. And for the first 23 years that I worked here, it was an absolute moot point because you couldn't make enough on the money. Back in 2021, we issued some incredibly low interest rate bonds, which was in 4 parts. 2 of those parts were taxable, so it doesn't apply to them. And the other 2, a quarter was loaned to CID. We have a reserve fund that we required from CID equal to 1 year's payments. And so that is considered non-spent funds. We just need to do the math. So it has to be done every 5 years. That was 2021, now we're 2026. I don't know if we have a problem. I'm concerned we may have a problem. So
by problem, it's a problem everyone's having, and it's
Yes.
not, you just have to pay.
you have to pay the IRS if you made too much money.
You're not in
Imagine that.
trouble
Right?
as long as
Right.
You calculate it when
you
you
calculate it on time and pay.
Okay.
So I have made contact. They used to be really, really persistent. You know, you go to these conferences and they all want your business and they all want to do your math for you. And I'm like, oh, well, our interest rate's this and we're making this. I think I can do that math. But I need to make sure the math's done right now. So we're looking at using a firm that's a subsidiary of Oric. At least we're gonna start there.
Sure.
And Oric is our current bond attorney, so.
And the CID funds that are held in reserve would be used to pay the IRS? Is that what you were saying? Or
No.
I would say that that's the only money that didn't get spent.
Right.
And so that's the only money that potentially, but see, the first couple of years, we didn't have a problem. So like I said, I haven't done the math for the 5 years. Maybe I'm worried about nothing. I don't know, but we're going down that path to determine. And I mentioned it once to the CID board, and they just said, well, you know, figure it out and let us know.
Okay. Well, I prefer caution to lack of caution. So, yeah.
This is happening to everyone,
Right.
everyone that got their money,
Well, even more so to people that got their money and ran into COVID and delayed their construction. Right.
Oh, I see.
Because you have 3 years to spend your money and there's people that are in a lot worse position.
Or bet they earned a lot of interest income.
Right, that's what the woman from this firm kept saying. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing if you have to pay. Okay.
Yeah. Pay it all back.
yeah.
You're right, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to pay it all. That's right.
I believe it's just the amount above. You don't put your main fingers.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, I understand. Any other new business? No. Thank you. Staff reports, projects updates.
Do we have any pictures?
We do have pictures.
Yeah, I don't think Tim's on, is he?
No,
Yeah.
I said they weren't
I
required.
didn't tell
I
him.
was saying I said they weren't required to be in person, but
Yeah.
maybe he took that to mean online too.
Must have. Okay. I mean, we took you guys on a tour, you saw.
Yeah, we pretty much saw it.
Pretty well saw
Yeah.
the project, but we'll run through this for everybody that wasn't on the tour. That's one thing we didn't get today was Hetner. We didn't go all the way to Hetner.
Got close.
I know that, Silver Creek, it's been pretty muddy up there, so they haven't been doing a whole lot of work in the last couple of weeks, but there's not a whole lot left to do. It's looking
Looks
really
really
good,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the green you're seeing is the seeded, they've
Yeah.
treated the ground so that.
Hydroseeded.
Yeah, hydroseeded, thank you.
Good.
That is the new line feeding Lamb West and West that we went by today. It's all completed now. Hopefully that takes care of all the, breakage issues we've been having over the last year or so there.
That's fresh water.
That's, yeah, potable water. That is the Kinsey line. Jacob, you want to take it?
Yeah, it's like we went out and saw, this is the Coonsie line feeding, fresh non-potable water, out to the airport. The upper left picture is the foundations for the Coonsie booster station. We didn't quite get all the way to, that is situated on that piece of property from the city of Portland.
Let me just skip past these. We got a pretty good look at those. But that's the inside of the
Yeah.
beach
Right.
for Internet Way.
That's inside the treatment facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it was 10,000 gallons per minute?
Mhm. Both of them are.
Yeah.
Look at the size of that meter, that blue.
What kind of treatment are they doing, Mark?
Huh?
Is it like an RO system? I mean, what's the?
It's
The type of
membrane
treatment.
technology, so like ultra membranes.
They have a similar system in Pasco,
A lot of,
Lewiston.
in the last 20 years, most water for potable sources coming out of the river are going through these ultra membrane type stuff. And Lewiston, Pasco, they've got Paul membranes, which is a specific model that we went with. Seems to work really well.
That meter's a little expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw
Can I
that
ask
one
one
more question.
Well,
Are we
what-
doing the
Go
maintenance?
back
on
up to the other one. So, nope,
Or the
no, the next one.
On the surface water treatment plants?
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
And-
forward,
and-
forward.
running them?
Go to where the generators are.
Oh, the generator,
Yeah, to
sorry.
give the scale, the generator's almost as big as the building is.
Yeah.
Kelly? Yes.
Oh, I was just
Okay.
wondering if we are doing providing the people that are running these treatment plants.
Yes,
Is that for tomorrow?
yes.
So we've hired one operator to date. We've been debating just recently how many more operators we'll need to fill those roles for both plants. But yeah, we'll be providing all operations and maintenance. That's the new electrical building out at East Beach, with the new backup generator installed. So our dredging project down at T1. We confirmed we've got permission to start clamshelling instead of just hydraulically dredging. So we saw those activities on the tour. The cranes working, using a clamshell bucket as well as the hydraulic dredge, the suction dredge on the front of the excavators. They're working in tandem to get us over the finish line. Upper left-hand corner are the new H piles that were driven for the turn cell. It'll go out about 175 feet off of the eastern sheet pile wall, and primarily it's used for the barges coming in upriver. They pivot off of it to get aligned with the slip before they load right with the slip, especially in windy conditions. Okay.
And that's Barenberg.
Right.
So we're rehabbing that facility, putting new doors and making some warehouse space.
I found a before picture so they could see how it was divided up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, the one down below, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
They were bins.
It's for seed.
Yep.
Mhm.
The question's gonna be, how long does it continue to be the Bear building?
Yeah, when are we gonna
forever.
rename that?
We'll decide when someone goes in there.
I was thinking about that the other day. So we picked up these bus stop things down in state surplus. I don't know how many years ago. At least
long
five.
time ago.
At least five,
Okay.
maybe six.
And we let you know that we were donating those to the county transit.
Yeah,
Yes.
This is the first one. to
so
be
the first one
installed.
in,
Yep,
first one in Boardman.
it looks great.
Got a bus stop now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. So we have those at other city locations too, if they.
Right.
They were.
Cool.
It's right in front of the,
No.
yeah, right by the market.
Ah, okay. Good spot.
I'm curious now, as I drive north on Main Street, if they're going to move their reader board up because
Oh, it blocks.
it does.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
That blocks it.
Well, yeah, you can see it right there at that
it
angle.
does.
that
It does. Yeah.
If you were going that
Can't
way.
have everything.
No. You know, your sign's not 12 foot tall.
It looks real good. It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It does look good.
Good.
And these guys worked on a Saturday to get that done and completed.
Is that the one they donated their time on?
Yeah.
I know one project they did.
Okay, I don't know for
JC and-
sure. That's
They
down
borrowed a
there.
piece of
It is.
equipment.
That was probably
donated-
based high school baseball.
That might
field
have been the
this
high
year for
school.
baseball.
baseball.
Yeah.
They borrowed a piece of equipment and donated their own time,
Great.
which was awesome.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
This one is the softball field down at the marina. It was full of puncture vine that wasn't gonna go away for many years.
Right.
So, we went down and skimmed some dirt out.
Good.
And they've got new dirt and then they've got the red surface dirt coming. I think probably soon. And baseball field, they wanna do the same thing in the fall.
nobody's contacted Tim on that, talked about it. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And maintenance update, is that kind of part of that too?
Yeah.
Thank you. Financial update. Okay.
Okay, when you look at the cash schedule, it does appear that the unrestricted cash is down. Again, that's a timing issue with both us drawing, the bond funds that are in the government pool and with doing some invoicing to our tenant that's paying some of our really big bills right now.
It also includes the in transit, GOC and stuff.
Oh, correct. So we did, and we have since received $1.5 million from CDA to cover that. So you will see that by categories, we are looking fine compared to budget. We always include the personal services, materials and services, the part at the top, because traditionally that was how we budgeted. We now budget on a legal basis based on segments. So the freshwater, discharge water, site development, medical, stage center and warehousing. I didn't notice anything that caused me a lot of heartburn, but if anyone does, sure to speak up and we'll take a look and see what might have happened.
Anyone have questions?
Bond handling fees or for budget or something.
Okay, so, yes. So when PGE told us they were refinancing their bonds, I thought that, and they were refinancing them through Idaho. I took that to mean that they were going away. No, they just refinanced the payment that was due September 1st. So our number of bonds did not change. And in fact, for this next year's budget, we'll have, well, an additional 10,000. So we'll be at 80,000, but, excuse me?
Said, did you mean BPA?
Yes, I don't know what I said, but I did mean BPA. We'll have an additional bond fee, a one-time fee of 125,000.
Questions for Eileen? Okay, usage reports. Everybody have a chance to look at those? Any questions on usage reports? Okay. Okay, any other staff reports? Any other reports? Willow Creek Valley Economic Development through BCDA, ICABO, representatives from any of those?
Seeing if
Doesn't want to admit to it. We'll meet tomorrow morning. We'll meet tomorrow morning.
Updates. Close the floor, I told you to do it.
Your meeting's tomorrow, I know, that's what you always.
And we can't remember what happened.
Okay, we're gonna get past the other reports then. For the good of the order.
I just have a question and I saw it online and it was about the Sage Center, and not being open on Saturdays. Has that always been that way?
For years, yes, they'll
Sunday.
come back.
No, not open on Saturday?
Certain hour, it seems like there's certain hours.
Oh,
on Saturday.
they come back, Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Summer, you have.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I saw it there and I was like,
It's-
I don't even know what,
It's strictly just based on the number of visitors they've had on those days.
I just thought Saturday would be the day that would be the most busiest.
Well, it is in the summer months.
Yeah.
Friday and
Okay.
Saturdays.
Just a question, I just saw that out there and
Any other good of the order? Okay, make note of the upcoming events, budget committee especially. So, and STA regional training in Pendleton, is that meeting law or?
But no, I put the email that I got and then we got a flyer in the mail after I did it. In your packet at the end of the other staff reports. So they've combined, they have a regional training and they used to have like an HR. And then they would have board training now so that they only have to come out this way once. They've combined them. It's a 2-day thing. So, but you don't have to go to both days. You can sign up for both days. You can sign up for just one day. But the email is in the back that shows you what it is. It's in April, I think.
Yeah, April 14th.
is that something that we do for our insurance again?
You have to just have one person attend one. We all went to SDAO, the
Okay.
annual, so we're covered on that. But there's HR, there's risk management, there's boards, so they've combined it all instead of having them separate.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it's just so that they just have to come out once.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll go into executive session, although we will take a short break between. But the port will hold an executive session meeting for the permissible reasons stated below under ORS 1926602. Representatives of the news media and designated staff and other persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. The public virtual Zoom meeting link will be paused during the executive session as permissible executive session meetings are not subject to HB 25. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in this executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to the room, start public virtual Zoom meeting link again, and open the regular session meeting. Purposes for the meeting. A, the purpose of consideration of deliberations with the port's executive director and other staff members who have been designated by the port to negotiate real property transactions. That's ORS 1926602E. And item B, for the purpose of consultation with counsel concerning the legal rights and views of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. ORS 1926602H. So this time we're taking a break.
We're gonna break.
5-minute break. We're gonna close the executive session that we had going, and we will reopen the regular session. Is there anything to come before us? Okay, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.